John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, is the third installment of the John Wick trilogy that we have gotten here. Keanu Reeves once again returns as John Wick, and this film picks up immediately after the second film ends. If you remember the second film, it ends with John Wick getting excommunicado from the Continental, from this international world of assassins in the High Table. So pretty much John Wick has to survive New York City with all of these assassins trying to get to him. He has to find a way to get off of this excommunicado list that he's on, try to find a way to live peacefully without people trying to kill him. If you actually remember seeing my first review of John Wick back in 2014, you know that I was a huge fan of that film. It's one of the best action films out there, to be honest. It's so well made and so well crafted, and even the second film I think is almost just as good as the first film. I think that movie is still really good. So of course I was so pumped when I heard that they were gonna bring back Chad Stahelski, the director of the past two films, to make this one once again. Keanu Reeves is back. Pretty much everyone we know of creatively and acting wise is coming back, so that was just great to hear, because I'm such a huge fan of this franchise and I wanted to see it go in a really great place with this third film after the second film just left me in so much suspense as far as where the story could go, and I was almost about to forget what it felt like to be tensed up during almost an entire movie's running time because of its intense action sequences. Luckily, this film reminded me of that. This is one hell of a ride. This is the thing that everyone talks about with these John Wick movies, what I talk about, but it's easily the best part is the action sequences. Chad Stahelski, coming from his stunt double background, he is such a fantastic action director. He knows exactly how to shoot these things in perfect wides where you can see everything. At no point are there moments where I was confused by what was happening because the camera kept shaking up too much. Everything was in focus, everything was clear, and you could make out everything that was going on, and the action sequences never get boring. Like in John Wick tradition, they find ways to keep the action sequences more interesting. Because John Wick is now excommunicado, there are certain things that are off limits to him, so it's not like he's got a gun on him at every moment. He has to kind of improvise. He uses a bunch of different things to kill people at this point. There's a ton of action sequences that all feel really different from each other, and it helps make them stand out even more, which is such a great idea. There's a moment where John Wick is breaking into this old antique shop, and he's got an old gun that you have to load yourself and wind it up. There's also a moment where he's throwing knives at people. He's using horses to kick people in the face. He's tying the lead ropes around their necks while riding a horse and dragging their body around. He uses a book at one point in the most gruesome way possible. There was one moment where I was thinking, okay, it's not going to get any worse than this when it came to this book scene, but no, it kept going with how brutal it was, and I was like, oh my god, and this was only the first at least 5 minutes of the movie. This film really does pick up where the second film left you off at, with that high tension of what's going to happen next, and it immediately launches you back into that feeling, and it doesn't hesitate, which is what I really love. This movie felt like it was going all out with its action sequences. The first two films did that too, but this one, because it was doing so much new, it just felt like it was a whole new John Wick experience for me, which was fantastic. A lot of it does have to do with the fact that Keanu Reeves is just perfect as this character. He does another fantastic job playing John Wick. His stunts, his fight sequences are so good. There's really rarely a moment where I thought that's like a Keanu Reeves stunt double. There's so many times, because the movie is so well filmed, that you just kind of think that Keanu Reeves is doing it, and it's probably because he was doing most of it. At least he was doing most of the stuff going on. A great addition, though, to kind of play off of Keanu Reeves in this film is Halle Berry. She plays the character Sophia, who is out in the Morocco Continental. She's got these two dogs with them, and they have a little bit of back and forth. They progress the plot further, and they have this great sequence with these dogs of hers, and they just have to, they're completely surrounded, but the dogs are helping them out. They're helping each other. It's such a well done sequence. It's so vicious. There's one moment where they had a dog do parkour at one point, and I was like, there's no way that could be true, but I just saw it happen, and it looked so good that it must be true, you know? They do a lot of crazy stuff that I loved. And Halle Berry, from what I know, she prepared just as hard for this film as Keanu Reeves has been doing for the past three films, so it honestly makes sense why she was so good here. I thought she was a really good presence. If they decide to make more John Wick movies, I'd really love to see her come back in some way, shape, or form. I hope this isn't the last time we're ever gonna see her. Ian McShane also has a really interesting role to play in this film. If you remember in the past film, because John Wick committed murder on continental grounds, he's the one who had to order the excommunicado on him, but that kind of leaves him in a weird position because he still kind of likes John Wick, but he has to follow the rules. So there's a interesting riding of the fence as far as his character goes, and I really liked it. I thought it really suited his character well, and it was really interesting seeing where Ian McShane's character went in this film. And the concierge is always a nice addition in all of these John Wick movies, but in this one in particular, they gave him a little bit more to do, and it was perfect. I really enjoyed seeing what they were actually giving this guy more of to do, you know? Like, I really was enjoying his character. This might be my favorite time seeing him, just because we get to see, like, that little more harder edge version of him. And also, I really did enjoy the villain of this film. Now, the main villain, technically, is the High Table, like, the organization. They send this woman, they call her the Adjudicator, who's kind of like the one who's trying to course correct as far as, like, what John Wick and others have enabled John Wick to do. Like, she's kind of trying to set things right for the High Table, and there's some kind of struggle going on there. That was a really interesting way to progress the plot further, getting to know more about the conflicting feelings of these assassins and the High Table themselves, because there's actually different positions as far as that goes, and that was actually really interesting as far as growing the world and expanding it and making it feel like it's actually changing and not just staying the same and nothing's really being affected. But as far as, like, John Wick's physical threat in this film, Mark Dacascos, he plays this guy named Zero, who has got a bunch of guys with him, who's like these super quick samurai ninja guys, and they're so, like, there's times where I was like, I don't know how John Wick's gonna be able to take these guys on, because they're moving so quickly and they're hiding in the shadows so well. Like, there's some shots where they come out of the shadows and I was like, oh my god, they were there the whole time, Jesus. But I really did enjoy the character Zero in this film, because at first I thought he was going to be like a harder edge character, but then at one point he kind of just drops it and it's just like, hey man, I'm a really big fan of yours, so this is actually kind of an honor to fight you. And there's also some other characters that mention that, and it's a thing that they've done in these other films where the assassins kind of have a mutual respect for each other, as far as, like, I really respect you, but a job's a job, gonna have to kill you. But it was nice seeing them kind of incorporate that into the main kind of physical antagonist this time around. If you remember my review for John Wick Chapter 2, I mentioned that one of my issues with the movie was that there was a moment where Ian McShane had set up this whole thing where people would be walking around John Wick, then they'd stop, look at him real quick, and then keep going, and kind of showing like the world is watching him, but then it just kind of made the world seem like it was too big, and it was almost a little too unbelievable how big this assumingly underground world is, you know? And there's really no moment like that in this film. I do have two moments that it just made it seem a little weird, where John Wick hails a cab and he kind of changes his mind midway through about where he wants to go, and he hands him a coin, Continental coin, and conveniently the taxi driver is a part of this underground world again. And I was like, okay, that's a little too convenient, because you kind of waved down a random taxi cab. And there's also one moment in the film, it's not like a whole sequence, but it's like one moment where these guys are slicing people up in public. People are walking by them as they're slicing them, but it's almost as if they were thinking that because they're going so fast that no one will notice, so it's fine. But I think if you were one of the people in that scene, you would have looked over at people moving really fast and noticed, like, oh, it's acts of violence going on around me. Besides those two things that kind of do, like as far as like transporting you into this world, almost kind of does take you out of it, but besides that, it's nothing as major as kind of what they did in John Wick Chapter 2, so kind of an improvement there. My only other issue with this film is that as much as I really do like the way they approach the story with this film, a lot of it is just action sequences. Of course, John Wick is just trying to survive. Tons of assassins coming after him, trying to evade the High Table and the Adjudicator that are trying to track him down, and the other people that have helped him. Like, I really like the way they handled that and where that kind of led to in the third act. The third act is bonkers, and it was really cool, and it never really gives you that moment to breathe. Even when things start to die down a little bit, you're still kind of tensed because you never really know when action's gonna start up again. So I really do like the way they approach this story, but there is one thing about the story, though, where it almost felt like it was turning into like a fantasy film. Like a specific line a character says is, walk into the desert until you can't walk no more, and then walk further. And they do show a little bit of that in the trailer, so it's not like that's a huge spoiler, but once they do get to that point, it just kind of felt like it was reaching as far as how the High Table was originally set up. Like, you'll know what I mean when you see the film. Some people might not have the same flaw as me, but it just felt a little bit too far as their reaching goes. But other than that, I enjoyed the characters once again. I enjoyed the action sequences that Chad Stahelski and the stunt team put together here. It's so much fun. There's so much fun. Chase sequences, fight sequences, gunfights, knife fights. Oh my god, there's so much to love here as far as the action sequences go. This is easily one of the best action films of the year so far. It doesn't really have that much competition except for like Endgame, I guess, but even then, this is obviously a better than Endgame, because Endgame, as much as I love Endgame, that's really reliant on CGI in a lot of places, while this film is definitely more trying to make you feel like everything is happening for real. Like, a lot of it feels very practical, a lot of it having to do with the direction and cinematography, all in one wide frame. I'm going to give John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum an A-. I've enjoyed all of these films. I think they're all almost, as far as quality goes, on the same level. I enjoy seeing Keanu Reeves as this character. If they decide to make more John Wick movies, I'm all in on that for sure, because I really do like what they did with the story of this film. Because for a lot of it, I thought I was watching a specific kind of film, but then once it does start to come to a close, I kind of realized that, oh, the story that I thought I was seeing isn't actually that story yet. And of course, I won't spoil it, because I know a ton of people are going to go see this movie. Tons of people are fans of this thing, thank God. I remember when the first movie, like, lost to Ouija on its opening weekend, and then the second film, it still lost to, like, Lego Batman and 50 Shades of Grey, but it still made a lot of money. But this one is, like, looking to kind of crush it right now. So that's a great change there. I'm glad more people are discovering these films and having a great time with it, because this is a great time at the movies. It does have some issues, of course, that I mentioned, but really, when you come to see a John Wick movie, you come to see some incredible action sequences with a really fun performance from Keanu Reeves and the rest of the crew. So I did not leave disappointed with this film. But if you've seen John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.